The scent of lilies always made my stomach turn, even before all of this. They were her favorite. The white ones, the kind that looked like trumpets heralding some grand arrival. Today, though, they smelled like a funeral for something that was once beautiful, something I cherished. I heard the lock click, the familiar jangle of keys, and then the slight push as the door swung open. I didn't look up from the worn pages of my book, not yet. I was waiting, listening. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor, a sound that used to make my heart flutter. Today, it felt like a hammer blow, each tap echoing the fractured rhythm of my own heart. "Honey, I'm home." Her voice was bright, too bright, and I could hear the fake smile clinging to it. The sound grated on my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. I kept my eyes glued to the page, pretending to be engrossed in the lives of fictional characters while my own life was spiraling into something tragic. "Oh, look," she called, her voice now closer. "I got you some lilies. I know how much you love them." The blatant lie hung in the air, a thick, suffocating cloud. That's when I finally looked up. I forced a smile, a small, tight thing that probably looked more like a grimace. "They're beautiful, Clara." My voice was calm. Too calm, I knew. But years of practice hiding my emotions had made me an expert. I watched her as she crossed the living room, placing the lilies in the vase on the coffee table. She was dressed in her usual attire, a casual summer dress that always seemed a little too vibrant for the beige walls of our living room. Her blonde hair, which I used to love running my fingers through, was perfectly styled as always, not a single strand out of place. It was the same Clara, but not the same Clara I fell in love with. Then she stopped. Her eyes widened, her perfectly painted lips parted slightly, and the color drained from her face, leaving her looking as white as the lilies she brought. Where is it?" she whispered, her bright facade finally crumbling. I knew exactly what she was talking about. The space on the wall above the fireplace where the enormous framed wedding picture had hung for the last 8 years. It was now empty. I had removed it just this morning. The hooks were gone, the wall wiped clean. Not even a trace remained. "What's missing, Clara?" I asked, my voice still calm, almost detached. I wanted her to say it, to give voice to the guilt she tried so hard to hide. "The picture, the wedding picture. Where is it?" She was pacing now, her heels clicking nervously against the floor, the sound amplified in the sudden silence. I finally closed my book, a thick, heavy biography of Abraham Lincoln, and placed it on the coffee table. "I took it down," I said, my voice steady. She stopped pacing and turned to me, her eyes searching mine. A flicker of panic replaced the fear. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. I leaned back in my chair, finally meeting her gaze. "Because, Clara," I began, my voice still controlled. "A picture is supposed to capture a moment in time. A memory, right? A snapshot of a specific point in a relationship." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "And that picture, that wedding picture, it's a lie." She recoiled as if I had slapped her, her face a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was shaky now, the veneer of calm completely gone. "It's a picture of us on what was supposed to be the best day of our lives. A day that was supposed to be the beginning of a life full of promise," I continued, my tone unwavering. "And it doesn't represent who we are anymore, does it? It's just a picture, a reminder of something that no longer exists." I watched as she tried to piece it together, her confusion slowly giving way to the dawning realization. Her eyes narrowed, and for a brief moment, I saw a flash of anger, quickly suppressed. "You know," I said, my voice colder now. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "Yes, Clara, I know," I added, letting the silence hang in the air, thick and heavy. The unspoken accusations filled the space between us. "How long?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Long enough," I replied, not elaborating. I didn't tell her about the burner phone I had found hidden beneath the lining of her purse, or the countless texts and late-night calls that painted a detailed picture of her double life. I didn't tell her how I had meticulously documented each piece of evidence, each little betrayal, an emotionally exhausting task that nearly broke me. "Who is he?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Does it matter?" I replied, my tone flat. "His name won't change the fact that you betrayed me, Clara. It won't erase the months of lies and deception." She dropped to the couch, her face buried in her hands. The lilies lay forgotten on the table. "I don't know what to say," she sobbed, the perfect facade finally shattered. "Don't," I said, my voice firm but calm. "Don't say anything. For once, just listen." I pulled a small, flat box from the side table. It wasn't a jewelry box like the ones I had given her before. It was a thick cardboard box, tied with a simple brown string. I placed it on the coffee table in front of her, watching as she slowly looked up. Her eyes, red and swollen, were full of questions, confusion, and a flicker of hope. I watched as she untied the string, her hands shaking. Inside, she didn't find jewels, but stacks of carefully organized papers. There were bank statements, phone records, travel itineraries, and a few pictures printed on glossy paper, pictures I had secretly taken. They weren't the loving kind. These photos captured stolen moments, clandestine meetings, and hushed whispers between her and him. She didn't say a word as she sifted through the evidence. The truth laid bare before her. Her face paled even more as she realized the extent of my knowledge. The hope that had flickered in her eyes was extinguished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated fear. "Everything," I said, my voice low but clear. "Everything you did, every lie you told, every secret rendezvous. It's all there, Clara. Documented." The weight of her betrayal finally crashed down on her, and the sob that escaped her was raw and gut-wrenching. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading, but there was no pity in mine, only a profound sense of weariness. I made a mistake," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "A mistake?" I repeated, the words dripping with sarcasm. "This wasn't a mistake, Clara. This was a choice. A long, calculated, deliberate choice to break our vows, to destroy our marriage, to destroy me." She didn't say anything. She just sat there, defeated, the truth finally visible in her eyes. "I'm leaving," I said, standing up. "I've already packed a bag. I've filed for divorce. It'll be served within the week. And there's a lawyer's letter among those papers. A letter explaining the details of the prenup we signed on that day. The day that photograph was taken. The day that you're no longer a part of." I walked to the door without turning back, leaving her there, surrounded by the ruins of her deception and lies. The clicks of her heels on the floor, which had once filled my heart with joy, now sounded like the death knell of something that never truly was. As I stepped outside, I took a deep breath, and for the first time in months, the air felt clean. The weight had finally lifted. The satisfaction wasn't in her pain. It was in my freedom, in the memory of her white face surrounded by those white lies. I found a revenge more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. I drove away, leaving her with the quiet hum of her own regrets and the silent whisper of a marriage that was never meant to be. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I was finally free. She rifled through her purse, panic growing with each passing second. "Where is it?" she muttered, her voice trembling. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning concern. "My wedding ring," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh no," I said, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "When was the last time you had it?" She looked at me, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "I don't know. I must have taken it off somewhere. I had hidden it, of course." The ring, a symbol of our commitment, was now a tool in my revenge. The next day, I set my plan into motion. I had prepared a file, meticulously organized, detailing her affair in excruciating detail. Photos, messages, even receipts. I left it on the kitchen table, knowing she would find it. When she did, the color drained from her face. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The truth," I replied, my tone sharp. "Something you've been hiding from me for months." She stammered, trying to explain, to justify her actions, but I held up a hand, silencing her. "I don't want your excuses, Claire. I want you to leave." Her eyes widened, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, we can work through this. I'll do anything." "It's too late," I said, my voice cold. "You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I had already spoken to a lawyer, ensuring the divorce would be swift and in my favor. The evidence I'd gathered was enough to secure everything: the house, the car, even the savings. Claire had no idea what hit her. As she packed her bags, sobbing, I felt no remorse. She had destroyed our marriage and our trust. This was justice. In the weeks that followed, I moved on, rebuilding my life piece by piece. Claire, on the other hand, struggled. M had ghosted her, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Friends we had shared distanced themselves, siding with me once they learned the truth. She had lost everything. One evening, as I sat on the porch sipping a glass of whiskey, I reflected on the past few months. The pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but so was a sense of triumph. I had taken back control, refusing to be a victim. Claire's laughter haunted me no more. It had been replaced by the sound of my own, a laughter born of freedom, resilience, and the sweet taste of revenge. The days following Claire's departure were a blur. The house, once filled with the noise of her laughter and the subtle tension of our broken trust, was eerily quiet, but there was peace in the silence. I found myself finally able to breathe, my mind free from the constant anxiety that had haunted me for months. I focused on myself, taking long walks, reconnecting with old friends, and rediscovering hobbies that had been neglected during the years of marital routine. The sense of betrayal slowly began to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of self-worth. I wasn't just a man who had been cheated on. I was someone stronger, someone who had reclaimed his life. I was the man who had survived and thrived. Claire, on the other hand, was unraveling. I had no idea where she was living now, but from the few conversations I had with mutual friends, it was clear she was struggling. She had lost everything: her marriage, her social circle, her dignity. M had completely cut ties with her, leaving her isolated and alone. It was a harsh reality to face, but one she had brought upon herself. One evening, I ran into one of our old mutual friends, Sarah, at a local cafe. She hesitated at first, but then opened up about Claire's current situation. "She's a mess, Jack," Sarah said, her voice tinged with pity. "She's been trying to contact you, but you know how it is. You're just gone from her life now. She has nothing left." I shrugged, the weight of Claire's absence barely a burden anymore. She made her choices, Sarah. Now she is to live with them. Sarah nodded, looking at me with understanding. "I know. I just hope she learned something from all this. And you? How are you doing?" I smiled, a genuine smile that had been a long time coming. "I'm good, Sarah. Really good. I'm finally free, and that's all I needed." As the weeks passed, I moved forward with my life. The divorce was finalized quickly, and I came out on top, just as I knew I would. The house was mine, the savings intact, and I felt a sense of satisfaction every time I stepped through the door. But more than that, I felt the weight of the betrayal lifting, piece by piece, with every passing day. Claire's attempts to reach out dwindled over time. I had received a few messages pleading for another chance, for forgiveness, but I didn't respond. My silence was my answer. She didn't deserve the closure she sought. Closure, I realized, wasn't something I owed her. It was something I had already given myself. One night, months after the divorce, I found myself sitting on the porch of my now peaceful home, watching the sunset. I thought about Claire, the woman I had once loved and the woman who had betrayed me. There was no anger anymore, just a quiet understanding. She had her reasons, but they weren't enough to justify her actions. As the last light of the day faded into darkness, I raised my glass of whiskey, toasting to the future, to my freedom, and to the new life I was building. I wasn't the man I was before. I was stronger, wiser, and more determined to never let anyone steal my peace again. The betrayal had shaped me, but it hadn't broken me. I was finally in control of my own life, and for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely happy. Claire thought she could get away with it, but the truth always comes out, and so does justice. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your life when everything feels lost. If you've ever faced betrayal or heartbreak, you know how painful it can be. But there's always a way forward. Don't let anyone steal your peace.